Hi guys, and welcome to part 29 of Skyrim Mod Sanctuary. Now the first mod I am going to cover is a mod that I saw quite some time ago, but I deliberately didn't cover because I knew, or at least I suspected, it was going to grow into something far more. And I was absolutely correct. And the mod I'm talking about is the Skyrim Monster Mod. Now, the reason I suspected this mod was going to go a lot further was because the same mod author made a very similar mod for Fallout New Vegas, and he does not do anything halfway. He definitely takes it to the limit. Now, the Skyrim Monster Mod adds over 100 creatures, and whilst many of them, or at least some of them, are retextured versions of existing creatures, there are a massive amount of completely new models. There are a wild array of radically different creatures that he's added to this game. Now, many of the creatures added are very consistent with the Elder Scrolls lore. So, for example, those of you who remember the Hunger from Morrowind, that has made a return. There are ogres. For those of you who miss fighting ogres, and I do actually, so you'll find ogres in the game now, and they are actually pretty cool. Now, I should warn you, there are some creatures that are not consistent with the Elder Scrolls lore, or at least they are quite obviously from other genres. And for example, there is the Balrog that makes an appearance. A very impressive appearance, I might add, in this mod. There are creatures called Drowners, which are one of the low-level creatures from the Witcher series. And you will even come across a Triceratops, so if you're in a Jurassic Park kind of mood. Although, actually, the Triceratops does remind me somewhat of the Clan Fear, which was in Morrowind. So, there you go. But this mod just adds a lot of creatures from sort of your Greek mythology, the Minotaur, creatures called drakes, which are like small dragons, different forms of elementals, an elemental called the Shade Elemental, Treants, Bulvors, which are really hideous, very, very ugly, and very well done. Different types of undead. Some really quite creepy ones, some quite impressive ones. The Wraith, a great big scythe if you want the sort of Grim Reaper look to some of your creatures, and Giant Cyclops, which was very, very impressive. So this mod is possibly not a mod I would recommend installing for your first ever playthrough Skyrim. You might want to stick to something slightly more lore friendly, but once you've finished it, if you want to try something that's going to add load more creatures to the game, make it a lot more interesting, add some very, very exciting fights, this is a great mod for it. The first combat I had with the Minotaur was brilliant. And the first time I met a sea dragon, I was in a bit of a panic because I had no idea how tough it was going to be. So this really does add a little extra spice to the game. And don't be worrying that you're going to find these creatures in inappropriate locations. They're not. He's placed them in very believable, reasonable places. They're added to level lists really well. So you're going to discover them basically in a very believable manner. And they also have some decent loot sometimes. So definitely worth installing this mod and definitely worth killing these creatures. Now the next mod is also a creature mod for Skyrim, and it is called SkyTest, Realistic Animals and Predators. Now apparently the name is an old name of some mod in Oblivion, and you can pretty much ignore it. What this mod actually does is it gives completely new artificial intelligence packages to the animals and the predators in the game. I don't know if you've noticed, but basically in the vanilla game, most of the predators you find, like bears or wolves, they just seem to exist to spawn and attack you randomly, basically. They're just small encounters to give you a bit of fun fighting things. They don't really feel part of the land. So this mod basically gives all of these creatures a life of their own. And as you can see from these videos, which are actually videos made by the mod author, and I'll link to them on YouTube, they all do things that are far more believable. The animals do things like they'll hunt a few times a day. They will even search for water once a day. They may even try and mate once a year, apparently. But all in all, they just act more like you would expect the wildlife to act. And that includes predators actually eating their prey and rabbits stealing lettuces. Now this mod can affect your game in quite noticeable ways. For example, wolves banding together to form a lot stronger wolf pack. But all in all, it's actually a very subtle mod that just enhances the immersion by making Skyrim just a slightly more believable place. Now, if you're using a mod that makes dungeons and night times a little darker, you're probably used to carrying a torch or the candlelight spell. But how much cooler would it be to be a little bit more civilized and carry a lantern? Well, the next mod does just that, and it's Einithars Lantern. Now, this basically adds a lantern to the game that you can find in Markarth, and you fill it up with oil, and it gives off light pretty similar to a torch. It doesn't give off quite as much light as a torch, but for me it actually gives off better light. It doesn't go quite as far, but it's a little less glaring, a little less aggressive, and I think very atmospheric actually. So I really do like this. Now these lanterns can be crafted, but be warned, it takes quite a few ingredients, and it's actually a lot easier to just pick up torches. So you really have to want to carry a lantern, but it is very cool. Now, if you like the lanterns and you like having a light source, but you don't want to give up your shield arm or your left arm for spells, there is another mod called Wearable Lanterns, which basically has the lantern hanging from your belt. Now this is a great mod because basically it allows anyone to have light and still be able to do whatever it is you normally do, whether it's sword and shield, bows, spells, etc. They also look very cool indeed, and you can actually give these to followers and they will wear them, and the follower becomes a lot easier to see, plus they can have the light for you. Now these lanterns can be crafted, and all they actually need are one lantern and a leather strip, and you can craft it at any forge. Very useful item, very useful indeed. And the last mod I'm going to cover in this video is a mod called Sustained Spells. Now this is a mod I thought about installing a while ago and never got round to it, but now I have a good need for it. Now the Sustained Spells mod adds two powers. One, clear sustained spells, and the other, toggle sustained mode. And so if I put the toggled sustained mode on, it's like a power, so when I click the power key, I get a little message saying entering sustained mode. And what this means is when I cast certain spells like Candlelight or Oak Flesh, they are sustained. So I'll cast it now, and there we go. Candlelight spell is cast. Now, this spell has got about a 60-second timer. Yep, so 53 seconds. Now, what this mod will do is once the spell runs out, it will recast the spell for no magicka, which means it will constantly have Candlelight following me around until I turn it off, and I can turn it off by using the clear sustained spells, and I can also toggle whether the sustained effect happens when casting through this power. And The trade-off, and the reason this is not overpowered, is your magicka regenerates slower whilst you have a sustained spell on. And it basically reduces the regeneration by about the right amount so that it is as if you kept casting this spell over and over again. So if you keep casting this spell every 60 seconds, it uses a certain amount of magicka, and this mod reduces the regeneration of your magicka so it approximates that amount of magicka. So it's pretty balanced, and in that way it's kind of like the Dragon Age mod, which had these sort of sustained spells that just reduced the maximum magic you had. This just reduces the regeneration. So hopefully there will be less sort of annoying recast of utility spells like that. Okay, now installation of these mods. Again, it's not really that difficult. If you go along to Skyrim Monster Mod and the file section, there is a main file which is currently at version 7. Click download with the manager, and once it's downloaded, hit activate. It'll take a little while. This one's reasonably big actually. It's close to half a gig. There are some optional files with this. There is one that changes the load screens, which is kind of interesting. There is a Minotaur skin, which I haven't tried, but apparently it can make your followers look like Minotaurs, which is very interesting. I might well be giving that a try. In fact, you know what? I'm going to give that a try. And there is also some werewolf transformation replacers. Now, I've not seen those because I'm not doing a werewolf playthrough right now, but I'm definitely going to try those out when I do. Now, for the SkyTest realistic animals and predators, go along to the file section. Again, one main file, download with manager, and activate in Nexus Mod Manager. And there are some optional files if you want. I don't use them. There's a low res textures, but I don't have any problems whatsoever with performance with this mod, so I'm sticking with the main one. For Einithars Lantern, there is only one file, and it's very simple. Download with manager and activate with Nexus Mod Manager. Wearable Lanterns, again, download with manager, activate in the Nexus Mod Manager. There is a version that has loose files if you're someone who's having trouble with BSA archives. I'm not sure why people are having trouble with them, but if you are, you can use that version. And the Sustained Spells mod is one single file, download with manager, activate in Nexus Mod Manager. So as you can see, nothing very difficult in installing all of these mods. Okay, and that's about it for all the mods in this video. However, before I go, I am going to talk about the Dawnguard trailer. Loads of people have asked me, have I seen it? What do I think? And if for some reason you've been living under a rock, they have released the trailer for the first Skyrim DLC, Dawnguard. And my reaction to it was pretty much, oh my god, wow. I mean, it really does look like it could be incredible. If it lives up to the sort of hype in the video, it's gonna be incredible. So yeah, definitely pretty psyched up for that. And of course, we're all waiting for the 1.6 patch to come out for the game, and that's going to change quite a few things. So I may do a video basically just on that patch, actually. One of the major changes from my perspective is that the 1.6 version of the game is having a new version of SKSE, and I know that the SKSE lads have added a lot of functionality now. They've actually added papyrus support, and that is going to massively increase the things we can do in some of the mods, especially when it comes to things like key presses and user interface manipulation. So that's going to be very exciting. And I'm going to do a new video on SKSE because it's a little bit more involved to install. It's not really complicated, but I'm going to do a fresh video just for that. And of course, as you can see, people are continuing to post great screenshots on the Skyrim Mod Sanctuary Nexus page. So thanks for that, and I will keep posting as many as I can each week. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, remember, click the like button. I always appreciate that. I look forward to seeing you guys next time, and until then, as always, have fun.